Hello everyone and welcome. This is Dawn. I'm so glad you could join me. Whimsy Stamps is really big into Halloween and they have lots of Halloween stamps and dies. So I thought it would be great to start getting ready for Halloween since it will be here in no time at all. I'll be using the Whimsy Stamps Haunted Graveyard die, which is really cool. It has a haunted house and these eerie trees. It's great for making spooky scenes. I'll also be using the Boo die set. It comes with 5 ghosts and the Boo sentiment, so let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is make my background. I cut a piece of white cardstock to 5 by 7 inches because I'm going to make a 5 by 7 card today. I'm going to start out by using my Distress Oxide black soot and my blending tool. I'm using a scrap piece of paper underneath my cardstock because I want to rub a lot of the ink onto the scrap paper first because I only want a light coating of the black ink on my paper. I just go around all the edges of the paper until I have the edges covered and a little bit in the middle. I don't have to cover the whole paper since I'll be covering the bottom with the haunted graveyard. Next, I bring in some Distress Oxide Candy Apple and I go over the black soot with it. I make sure to rub some of the ink off onto the scrap paper and I start on the edge of the paper and I work my way in. By starting off of the paper, it helps also to prevent harsh dark spots on your paper. And then I'm going to bring in some of the spice marmalade and I continue to do the same thing, starting off the edge of the paper and working my way inward, and I keep blending it with the candied apple. And then I bring in some fossilized amber. This really lightens up the colors, kind of gives it the look of a sun setting, I think, which is really nice. I just keep blending it with both candied apple and the spice marmalade. Depending on how dark you want it, you can keep going over the colors if you want to. I wanted my background kind of on the darker side, so I just kept adding more of each color until I had the desired look that I wanted and until I felt that the colors really were blended together really nice. Okay, once I'm done blending the background, I take my blending brush and with a very light hand, I add a little more black soot around the edge of the card and I go in just a little so the center of the card stays light, and I'm mostly focusing on the corners and the edge of the paper until I have the look that I want. Once I'm done putting the black soot, then I went back and I touched it up to make the center a little lighter with the fossilized amber. I think the background turned out really nice and it's going to look great for my spooky card, and I'm just going to set that aside for later. And then I die cut the middle size moon from the haunted graveyard from a piece of white cardstock. And then I take the fossilized amber and I go all around the edge of the moon with it. I'm making the edges much darker than the inner part of the moon. And then I take the black soot and my blending brush and I put most of the black ink onto the scrap paper. I don't want a lot of black on the moon at all. I just want to have the edges to be a little darker, and I want to put a little more on one side to make it look like a shadow is on the moon. And then that's it, it's done. Quick and easy. I'm going to die cut the haunted graveyard from some black cardstock. I wanted to point out that the edge of the die does not die cut. It's meant to be on the edge of the paper, so you just lay it right up against the border like this, and then you run it through your die cut machine. But you can easily make a wider bottom like I'm going to do. You just put it up higher and that will give you the extra wide border. Okay, I die cut it out and it does leave a line impression on the cardstock under the house and the trees, but you don't even notice it when your card is all together. I die cut 2 of them so I could have a couple of extra trees. I want to make it look like there are lights on in the house, so I take a piece of scrap paper and I ink blend some of the fossilized amber onto it, and then I place it behind the house and I cut all around the shape of the house so the yellow paper is only behind the windows. If you don't want to ink blend a piece of paper, you can use some yellow cardstock as well. Once it's all cut out, I put a little bit of glue on the back of the house and I adhere the piece of yellow cardstock to it. I flip it over so I can see the front of the house so I can make sure none of the yellow cardstock is sticking out anywhere. Now I'm going to start to assemble my card. I put what looks like a lot of glue on the back of my haunted house. I don't know why, but I'm very heavy-handed with my glue for some reason. But anyway, I don't put the glue on the top of the house near the roof because I need to put a ghost behind it later. I adhere the haunted house to my distressed cardstock. I just line it up so the edge touches the bottom of the cardstock. Then I slide my other two little trees I had die cut from the second haunted graveyard behind the graveyard before the glue dries. And I don't put any glue on the back of them yet because I'll do that later. I die cut the ghosts from some white cardstock, and then I add some glue onto the back and the front of the ghost, and I adhere it behind the house so he looks like he's kind of flying behind the house. I adhered the moon to the cardstock, and then I die cut the word boo from some black cardstock and I adhere it over the moon. And before the glue dries, I stick the little ghost in the last O so it looks like he's flying through it. I stick the last ghost in the trees, and then I adhere the ghost and the rest of the limbs down to the cardstock. Be careful how much glue you use. If you're like me, I tend to put a lot. If the glue gets on the Distress Oxide, it does make the color bleed and can ruin your background. And trust me, I know this from experience because I've done it. Once everything is adhered to the card, I cut off the excess of the graveyard with a pair of scissors, and I do that to both sides of the card. I decided I didn't like how short the tree looked once I cut the sides off, so I took the top of a tree and I put it behind the ghost's head to make it look like the tree is taller than what it is, and I like that much better. Finally, I'm going to use the Spirited Sentiments, the Happy Hauntings, and I'm going to heat emboss it onto my card. I rub my paper with my embossing powder bag. I stamp the sentiment with Versamark ink. I pour gold embossing powder on it, and when my heat tool is good and hot, I heat emboss the sentiment. So after looking at my card, I realized I got a little bit of glue on the roof of the house, and it was bothering me. So to hide the glue, I decided to use my Wink of Stella pen to cover the whole house. It came out great. You can't see the glue spot at all. But then I decided to go all crazy and use the Wink of Stella pen to cover all the trees and even the boo sentiment. What's great about this is I actually stopped at the line, and it looks great. It totally took away from the line being there. You can't even see it, and it looks like it's meant to stop so you can have the sentiment at the bottom of the card. So don't get discouraged when you get glue where you don't want it. Just be creative and do something like this with the Wink of Stella. I think it added a lot of sparkle to the card, and I think it came out great. To finish off the card, I adhere the card front to a top folding 5x7 card base. It's kind of hard to see in the video, but I think the card looks great with the Wink of Stella on it, and it has a lot of shine to it, and it just gives the card that little extra something. So that's going to complete my card for today. I would love for you to leave a comment below and let me know what you think of the card. And if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos and new product releases. As always, thanks for stopping by and have yourself a wonderful day.